Hi everyone. Welcome to SharePoint Power Hour. I am Laura Rogers, and this is Lori Gowan, our guest today. SharePoint Power Hour is all about things you can do in SharePoint without having to write, program or write code or do anything necessarily hardcore server admin. This is a weekly show that we do every single Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central. And the cool thing about Power Hour is that you can ask us questions as we go. So real quick, I'll just kind of tell you about how that works, and then we'll all introduce ourselves. We have, when you're in the Google Hangout, when you're in YouTube, to get to the Google Hangout, which is where the Q&A is, there's a little yellow link on the YouTube video. And once you're in the Google Hangout, there's going to be a little button. You have some little sort of a button that's got some little squares on it towards the top right, and that will switch you between the Showcase app, which is where we share links, and the Q&A app, which is where you can ask us questions. So that's the cool thing about doing this live, is that you can ask us questions as we go. And we'll let everybody introduce themselves that's here in the room, and then we'll go ahead and talk about our topic for the day. So let's see, Kevin, and then Ryan, and then Stephen, and then Tavis.
Good morning or afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Kevin Hughes. I'm a SharePoint architect on Laura's team at Rackspace, and I've been working with SharePoint for seems like a few centuries. But my current role is really to work with our clients and figure out what they really need to solve their business problems, and see if we can't work out something in SharePoint to be able to solve those problems, and then work with our rest of our team to make it happen.
All right, I guess that means I'm up. I'm Ryan Keller. I'm the branding guy on the team here at Rackspace, and that basically means that I make SharePoint look pretty, so I brand it. And been doing that for a little over 4 years now, and I've been working with SharePoint for, I think, a little over 8 years now. I am based out of northern Colorado, and I guess I will hand it off to the next person now.
Stephen, are you muted, Stephen? We can't hear you if you're talking.
And we still can't hear you.
Sign language, Stephen.
Tavis, you go ahead and go. We'll skip Stephen for now.
Okay. Hello, my name is Tavis Lovell, and I am the business intelligence developer on the business solutions team. So I deal with all things reporting and dashboarding inside of SharePoint and SQL Server.
Alrighty, so this is the second time that I've had a guest here for Power Hour at my house. So the last time I had Brett Lonsdale here, and we talked about external content types, VCS, that stuff. And then so we're sitting here in the dining room like this, just kind of talking the whole time, and we didn't realize that even though in the Google Hangout, the screen we're looking at, it looks like it's a very wide screen, and it looks like there's plenty of room. Then we looked at it later. You could see half of each of our faces in the because it recorded it like as this little tiny square. So we're going to try and remember to sit closer so that both of our faces will be in the recording. But so it's a little awkward, but that's what we're doing. So this is Lori Gowan. Who are you, Lori?
I'm Lori Gowan. I work for Microsoft. I'm a premier field engineer. Laura and I have worked together for a long time. Known each other for 12 or 13 years now. Long time. We started in SharePoint together, so I've been doing it for 10 years, roughly. Maybe more than that, something like that. We both have done end-user stuff, admin stuff. I drift more towards the IT pro side. She's a little bit more on the end-user side. But we still talk about a lot of that stuff, so that this is just one of the things that we have these conversations all the time. And we'll geek out over SharePoint, yes. And so this is some of the stuff that comes out of those conversations.
All right, and I'm Laura Rogers. I'm a Microsoft MVP, and also so we'll talk about sort of our background because it's pertinent to this session. So this is a session we're going to present a session that we've done at conferences we're going to do. It's called Driving User Adoption from an Admin Perspective. So we started off as server admins. We were Exchange admins, and so we were on this team where we used to work at that was messaging and collaboration. And so at some point in 2004, so SharePoint got thrown into the. They said, hey, this is a collaboration server, so you guys are in charge of it. So and so we were server admins, kind of, and I was learning more of the server admin side and going to admin training and all that stuff. And Lori was actually at the time doing more InfoPath. It's kind of funny. And but the whole gist of this session is that I remember being frustrated that when you're an admin and you're looking at things in central admin and things that admins have control over in SharePoint and servers in general, there are things that admins can see and do that pertain to user adoption in a way that the business doesn't necessarily know they exist. So, for example, I remember seeing this little button in Central Admin called Publish Links to Office Applications, and I asked my boss about it at the time and said, "Hey, do you think this would be something interesting where we could go push links out to all people all the Office applications for everybody who uses SharePoint?" And she said, "No, well, the business hasn't asked for that." And I remember, so when you think about that way, like the business doesn't know that it exists, so how are they going to know to ask for it? So the whole gist of this is just going to be, like, they're going to read your mind.
Yeah.
No, it's just going to be things that it helps. So if you're watching this, it helps for you if you're an admin, because these are things you can do, but it also helps for you if you're not an admin to know kind of what those admins have at their fingertips and what's possible, so you could potentially ask them about it. I have several links that I've shared here in the little, there's the Showcase app that you'll see in the Google Hangout. We've got a specific Power Hour that we did, a user adoption discussion where we actually talked and touched on some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. If you remember that one, Stephen, that was your idea. That was episode 55. And then I've got a link to Lori's blog in here. And I've got a link to our YouTube, the YouTube of the session that we presented, this exact same session that we presented at Ignite. There's no video, it's just the slides up on it, but it's the same thing. Actually, at Ignite, we were told to put more Office 365 content in there, which was hard because it was already a very full session. So we had a little bit more Office 365 content in it for that. But I will go ahead and get started and share our screens and that session pulled up. We've got plenty of demos and stuff like that. We've got 18 live viewers. Now, since we're in my dining room, I've only got one screen, so I'm just going to be able to see what we're presenting. So guys, Ryan and Kevin, you guys, can you tell us, like, just shout it out when there are questions in the Q&A, since I won't be able to keep an eye on it. Thank you. All right. Let's see. Entire screen. Oh, this is scary. Okay. Okay, so
wow.
Whoa,
that was cool.
Okay, so now they can't see our faces, so you don't have to sit so
good.
Just kidding. Right. Driving user adoption from a technical standpoint, we already told you who we are and our background around all that stuff. We'll kind of just breeze through that. All right, so the agenda is going to be, we're going to talk about user adoption issues, like what are the issues in the first place, and then talk about what the tools are that admins have at their fingertips, and then solutions to some of the issues using the tools that you have.
I love all your graphics in this, by the way. So much fun. So some of the common issues that we hear, these are the things that everyone complains about SharePoint. You know, it's hard, it's a pain in the butt. These are the complaints that we get from end users. And the whole reason that I like this session is because I don't want people to call me. I get tired of the, how can we do this? This drives me crazy phone calls that I get as an admin. And this will help with some of those. So I think that as we go through these, we'll get more into detail in them, but this is just kind of an overview of some of the ones we're going to talk about.
All right, so the first one is the lack of awareness of Office integration. Did you know that you can save files straight to SharePoint and open files straight from SharePoint? So if you're an end user, there is a way to manually add locations inside of your Office applications, and we might have time to show that, like demo that at some point. This is a very full session, so I'm not sure. We might have to add that do that some other time.
Right.
But then we'll talk about the admin answer later, to where you do have a way of pushing that stuff out.
This is one that I get a lot, because end users, they want to work in like what they're comfortable with. They don't want to have to go. Why are you making me go to SharePoint? That's the one I get a lot.
Extra
I have to go to SharePoint to do this. So the whole point of this is to be able to not make them go to SharePoint. They can work in what they're comfortable with.
All right. And then you get authentication annoyances. So they get prompted as soon as they go to a SharePoint site. They get prompted to authenticate. As soon as they open something in SharePoint, any kind of Office files, they get prompted to authenticate. SharePoint Designer, and then so they're constantly getting prompted. Every different web app they go to, they're getting prompted, so they complain about this. So there is an end user way that they can do this by configuring some IE settings, but we'll talk a little bit about the admin answer of being able to push some of this group through group policy. And I actually just wrote a blog post about this on wonderlaura.com, this whole concept too, because it's been a very recurring issue that I've been talking to people about.
It's been recurring for 10 years, because I think it's always been one of those things people complain about. Oh, here's a fun one. The App Store. There's two schools of camp here. You know, why can't we have the App Store? Or there's too many apps. What do I choose? This is one I see a lot. I actually had a customer just in the last week or so say, we want to set it up this particular way because we want this to happen. And actually what they asked me to do was break SharePoint for them, which I've never had somebody ask me to do, because they wanted it to be broken to the end user. And that was just kind of odd to me. But they're going to get them a lot of the first question, why can't we have the App Store? Why can't we have apps? Because of the way they wanted it broken.
And then they get overwhelmed once they do have the App Store of all the hundreds of apps out there, and then they just start installing them like crazy, and then or they start just sending you a list saying, which apps do I need? Well, there are hundreds of them. I have no idea which ones you need. Like, what are you trying to do, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Another issue is archiving or moving files, either moving it from library to library or site to site, or
managing data, because just like anything else, you end up with tons of data. I had a customer that turned on theirs and they said, we want to keep everything and every version of everything, and they turned on versioning everywhere and set no limits. So that Oh yes. Like, oh wow. You want to talk about lots of data, and then they were like, now we need to migrate. We need to archive this old stuff. But if they had
versions,
everything, it was just crazy. So managing this and being able to say, okay, we have a ton of data, or we don't need a ton of data. We only need the most current stuff, and we can put this somewhere where it's accessible but not used all the time is really a big thing. So archiving is a big deal there.
Yeah. All right, so what are the tools that us admins have at our fingertips? Now, I always talk about, again, how Power Hour is not for admins, but even if you're not an admin, it helps for you to know what some of these are and kind of be familiar with what's possible, and even have like your own test environment maybe, so you can try stuff and see what's there.
Figure it out.
We have Active Directory group policies, central admin, and of course Office 365 admin.
So it is really where a lot of things need to start from. The reason this is such a big deal really to SharePoint, not just because of authentication and authorization and all of those identity type things, this is also where you do things to get your user profiles, where information is pulled from to create audiences. All of those things are there. I love that Laura's reaction when somebody says, can we have a directory of people? She usually rolls her eyes, and it's really funny because
it's just there.
It just works, right?
But we need to print out a list. We need a printable list of all of our people in our company. really need that, huh?
Right?
So we get that a lot. Yeah, feel free to shout out in the chat in the little Q&A if you've seen that be a common request.
I could flip this to Q&A and we can watch Q&A over here. We're having a little conversation of our own here.
All right, so that's going to be an important fundamental to know. Group policy. This is cool. So You have user policies and computer policies. If you are a server admin, MCSE, any of that, you're going to be familiar with what group policies are. But you have Microsoft, a template that they give you that's not part of the group policy by default. It's you go to this Office Resource Kit site and download it, but it gives you, if you look at the little screenshot here, all these different Access, Excel, InfoPath, Link, Office, all these different settings that are like registry settings that you can push out and make applicable to all your users' computers. So we're going to talk about some of those that are pertinent to SharePoint. But group policy is so much fun. I know when I was first MCS, when I was a server admin, when Active Directory first came out, that like in 2000 or so, I kind of went nuts creating all kinds of group policies that were really not necessary.
Yeah. You've told me a lot of those stories.
Changing wallpaper.
You're just going in and playing with stuff.
And screensavers and wallpaper and just user settings and stuff like that. Like, ooh, I have control over this. All right. Just central admin.
Oh, yeah. Central admin is, of course, where most of your SharePoint pros, your IT pros, are going to spend a lot of their time anyway. We're used to this. We go to it a lot. One of the biggest things in there, though, is going to be like your user profile service. This is where you can do a lot of things that affect your end users that people don't know about. Most people just go in, they set up the synchronization, and they call it done. Hands are clean, we're done. But using central admin to do more things that you can customize for your end users is really a cool thing here. And when we first started talking about this and you started showing stuff to me in it, and we were playing with all that stuff, there was some really cool things in there, and I can't wait for you to demo them.
Yeah.
We're making the screen do all kinds of weird stuff over here.
Yeah, I hit everybody else's faces because it makes our screen bigger.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It hasn't hit over here yet.
Oh, okay. If they can't see my face, they can't see everybody else's. That's just...
Oh, well.
It gives us more screen real estate when we do that. All right, so here...
We do have a couple of comments in the Q&A.
Okay.
From Ann Loveless. We need to get SharePoint sync to keep users from asking to have their info removed/changed.
Okay. So there's a couple of things there. That's a big one. Being able to change or update your info, you can actually have it where they can update some things, like maybe their phone number, stuff like that. There's also ways to take that information if you've got it stored in like an HR place or wherever it's stored, and pull that into AD. So the AD still becomes your single version of truth. You're just using it as your central repository from information from all these other places. So that's a big one right there. I see that a lot. People say, hey, my email address is different, or I changed my name, or I got a new phone number, I moved desks, whatever. Being able to update that information is an important way and is an important thing. So there's lots of different options for being able to do that.
Yeah, but your company might do it differently. Like like where we used to work, all the data, the main source of data was PeopleSoft. So and then it went from PeopleSoft, and it would get synced over to Active Directory, and go from Active Directory over to SharePoint, and then, but users had a process where they had to submit some changes to HR so that HR would put it in PeopleSoft so that it would go through all these different systems. So it just depends on the way you're doing it in your company, because you have to have a way for them to request those changes, like an efficient way. Because usually people aren't going to be making changes in SharePoint and they're going to Active Directory. That's not, and actually that's been taken away in 2016. So that's not going to exist anymore, the ability for changes to go from SharePoint to AD.
Yeah, there was such a limited number of things that people wanted to write back to be able to update. It was usually either like phone numbers or pictures. That was like the only two things that people wanted to put back in AD. And so it makes more sense for us to pull from AD and have a different method to write that information into AD and let it still be the single version of truth.
Yeah. And then CP7 Insane 0 says, oh yes, let's build a directory from the ground. Yes.
I love this one, Ann. Yes, I see that all the time, Ann. Yes.
No, they changed their name. Oh. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yep. Poor admins having to deal with that. Okay, so let's go back to show my screen again. You know what we should have done? We should have put another camera connected to your computer so that it could be on us. We'll have to do that next time.
Oh.
So that since mine
okay
turns
with
my
it not being
computer
on us.
off when, yeah, that's true. All right.
The funny thing is we're back here as we're talking and going through the slides, making hand gestures and doing all this stuff, thinking that you're actually going to be able to see it, and you're not.
Okay. So here are the solutions. We're going to talk about promoted sites and links, pushing browser settings, configuring authentication, managing app stores, search customization, and creating send-to locations, and then just some extra, just random stuff too. What did I just do? There we go. This first one is my favorite.
This is all you.
It's my favorite. Publish links to Office applications. This what this does is allows you to, in Central Admin, define links to publish to Office applications to certain audiences. So, for example, if you have your marketing people have a marketing team site, and that's where they collaborate on everything, and that's the main place they all go, then you can create an audience called marketing, and you can create this special link and have it targeted just to the marketing audience, and all the people that are in that audience, when they're in their Office programs, they will have that link to save things to the marketing location. And so that's where that puts that. The only just some little weirdness around that is that I found is that they have to have at least gone to their My Site before and gone to SharePoint, at least like open a file or saved a file back to SharePoint, and all of a sudden all this stuff lights up. So unfortunately, Microsoft hasn't. It doesn't exist yet for all that stuff to just be there when you're a new user and you're just opening your computer for the first time. But I think they're getting there. So the first time you go to your My Site, it adds this personal site URL called. It's an attribute in AD called www homepage. It puts it there the first time they go to their My Site, but that's something as an admin, if you wanted to, that you could implement and put in everybody's profiles for them so that it exists already. The promoted sites is kind of a similar concept as the published links. Promoted sites is your pretty little sites button in SharePoint and Office 365. All those pretty little squares that you see at the top, those are your promoted sites. And so you have the ability to target those two audiences. This is huge. You get to define what the link is, you get to define what the image is that it's going to point to, and you target that link to an audience of people. That way when people click on the sites button, they're not going to be inundated with all this crap that has nothing to do with them. They're just going to see the stuff that's pertinent to their role. For example, if you have a sales page that's got stuff about, Salesforce training and Salesforce info and sales leads and just all this stuff in your company that's just relevant to salespeople, just promote that site to people in the sales audience, and therefore only they will see it, because all the other people in the company, they don't even have a Salesforce account and it doesn't apply to them. They're not salespeople. They don't ever need to go there. So that's just a helpful thing.
And in Office 365, especially if any of y'all have played with any of the demo tenants that they have, they usually pre-build, and you have this huge list of sites. And a lot of times I think admins are afraid of that because they're like, oh, then I have to manage all these sites and people don't want to open it up and see a bunch, but they forget about the audiencing. And so that's a big thing, is remembering that you can audience those links so they don't have to see all of them, because then it becomes overwhelming. It's just like the whole, who gets to be on the homepage thing,
Yeah.
Everybody thinks that they're important enough to be on the homepage. Their department.
My department needs to be the first link.
Exactly. Well, you can make it the first link for them, right? So I like doing that a lot, because it gives them easy access to the things that they think are important, because not everybody thinks the same stuff is important.
Yeah. And then group policy, we're going to have some reference links on the last slide. And I was thinking of writing a blog post too and putting them all up in there. But you download your admin templates from Office Resource Kit, and you do group policy. We might have time for a group policy. Hopefully, we'll just throw a group policy demo in there too. There are hundreds of settings in there. Actually, I'm gonna pull up my little spreadsheet that I. So when you download the Office Resource Kit, it gives you this Office 2013 group policy settings spreadsheet, and I went through and highlighted a bunch of the stuff that was pertinent to SharePoint in here. So, for example, just this is learn more about SharePoint hyperlink, a SharePoint product name, which we'll have in another slide. You have the home workflow library, which we're going to talk about in another slide. And all these are registry settings.
Yeah.
So it'll tell you what the name of the policy setting is, what it does, what the registry key is, because all group policy is just putting, it's really just putting, well, not all it is, but it's a lot of this stuff, this Office stuff is registry settings. So it says this is what it's going to put on people's computers. I have noticed that the Office 365, Office 2013 Pro Plus, the registry is completely different.
It is different.
So this Office Resource Kit doesn't necessarily apply. And saying, can we give a person group a list of links that only they see on their page?
So that's what that is, actually. When you audience something in, you can go in and say, I am going to audience this to this particular group, and so only those people would see that list of links. So you can absolutely do that using those published links. You could also, I guess, go in and create your own thing and just audience it. Like if you need a specific list of links for, like 6 links for sales and 6 links for somebody else and 6 links for somebody else. With the use of audiences, you can actually do that on any page. You can audience target most any of your content on pages too. So you could actually have a page that had all of those different lists on there, and use an audience for each one of the web parts that contain those lists, and everybody that went to it would see something a little bit different because of their audience.
I'll go ahead, and I don't have a slide that says to go do a demo of the group policy stuff, but I'm going to go ahead and just do it, and then I'm going to do, I do have a slide that says to go demo the promoted links stuff too. So this is my Active Directory controller. And I've got my, this is group policy right here. I just open up group policy and I can go edit it. Of course, if you're an admin, you're going to know where all that is. And so here are my policies. This is computer policies and then user policies. So there are 2 different, I'm not going to get into all that. That's more like MCSE stuff. But these are all the products that we're talking about. Like InfoPath has a whole category in here, like different things you can. It's all basically all the buttons and things that exist in each of these software products, and being able to control what people have available to them as far as buttons. So like we can go. I'll go into miscellaneous. Where's Office 2013? See, this is just generic Office 2013 stuff. You have collaboration settings in here. Outlook send for review. Apparently there's a send for review concept that that seems really cool. I'd like to try that out. A lot of this stuff is not even obvious in Office. We have this miscellaneous category, which is where a lot of the SharePoint stuff is, like home workflow library and SharePoint product name that we're going to talk about. But I just kind of wanted to show you what some of this stuff looks like behind the scenes. Change the destination URL for SharePoint. Just to and again, in your own environment, you're going to have to test this, and you're going to have to see kind of what, what does what. It's possible that some of this stuff is residual legacy features that don't even necessarily exist anymore, or don't exist in what version of Office you have. So definitely test this stuff out. But there's hundreds of stuff in here, right?
Oh yeah, there was some really cool stuff that somebody worked on,
yeah,
and nobody knew about.
Yeah.
So when you go back to the slides, there's one that when you showed me that, I thought, wow, I never knew that existed.
Yeah, that's true.
Really cool.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and minimize my VM here. Yeah, and go back to our slides. We're halfway. We got to 11:30.
Anne has another question. How much do we have to pay for this great list, Lori?
I don't know. If Laura publishes it, I guess it'll be free.
Are you talking about the spreadsheet?
I think so.
The spread. Yeah, that's an Office Resource Kit. All right, so here are a couple of examples of some of the things we just talked about. This is the push links to commonly used libraries and site templates. All right, so this is coming from the published links to Office applications setting that we were talking about that's in your user profiles. This is, I've defined a location. So what I did in SharePoint is I created a document library and I put our company templates in it as content types. And I called the library, templates or something like that. So all the templates in there as content types, not just as files in there. And then I pointed to the location of this library as my published links to this, as to this location as the URL. And so when people, the end result is that when people go open their Office programs, it says Contoso templates here, and then it's got my templates, that all the things that were content types, like company policy template or whatever, and that's where they see them. So all they have to do is go into Word and see their templates right there. And those can have target audiences too. This one was a neat little...
This was the one that I went, wow, I didn't even know that it existed.
And a lot of the stuff I just kind of spent hours just playing around, just kind of figuring out what it did. This is in group policy. So Office 2013, miscellaneous, and then the home workflow library. So if you noticed in SharePoint 2013, in SharePoint 2010, every library had out-of-the-box workflows just there, just out of the box. They were just always there in every library. And then what happened in 2013?
They didn't. They're not there. You have to go turn them on to different places.
You have to go turn the feature on too. You have to turn the feature on, and you have to go to a library and add if you want to have a workflow. So if you want to have end users be just in a file that's in SharePoint and have this pretty little workflows thing, what the result is that if they're in a file and they want to run it through a workflow, these are going to be your predefined workflows, like I just named them, approval and content feedback. And these are just the out-of-the-box, just workflow, 2010 out-of-the-box workflows. So what it does is that if they click on that, it says, okay, so you want to put this document through a workflow, and it actually moves the document to this like central workflow library that you've defined that already has those workflows turned on it. So, I mean, it might not be for everybody because you might not want to have to move things, but...
No, but if you make that, part of it, or if you turn on the approval workflow and you use things like the thing that we're going to talk about, the content organizer, there's a lot of options there too. But this is great to me because I think a lot of times users want to be able to just do it from there. They don't want to have to upload it from SharePoint and then start the workflow and do all of that stuff. If you're in Word and you just need a quick approval on something, you can run it from right here. You type the document, you start the approval workflow, it puts it in the library for you, it runs everything for you, and then you get your feedback right away, rather than having to go find where you're supposed to put it and upload it and find the workflow and start it.
But it is a central library that everybody would be going to. So a way that you could split it out would be, in group policy you have these things called OUs, and you could have different group policies for different OUs. So you'd have, if you had your group policy organized to have different groups of people in different OUs, you could then go assign different home workflow libraries to different departments or whatever, if you had them organized that way.
You absolutely could. You could have all the salespeople in one OU, and they could have their own approval workflow.
Who does that, though? Who organizes their Active Directory? I mean, come on. Any questions or comments so far? I'll go ahead and move on. Flip back. This is another group policy one. This is the SharePoint product name. I kind of gave you a glimpse of that when I was showing that group policy just a second ago. Does anybody call their SharePoint something other than SharePoint? Does SharePoint have a bad name maybe?
Oh, yes.
So in here I called it Contoso SP, and that way in the Save As screen people don't see the word SharePoint. They're just saving it to... What was the one that you said?
I've had that happen. I was working for a company and we were implementing SharePoint as our intranet. And so as we were doing it, we were doing a lot of where we would get different users together and we would ask questions and talk to them. And I walked in and apparently somebody had messed with SharePoint and just had a bad experience. Whatever the bad experience was, when we walked in and said, hey, we're going to be implementing SharePoint, blah, 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 blah. Oh my gosh, she stood up. I hate SharePoint was her exact words. I was like, okay. So then we were able to go, okay, now why do you say you hate SharePoint? What was the experience? Find out what those were. And of course, we were able to remediate that. But because it had such a negative stigma already, sometimes changing the name is important. So we completely renamed it. Like, there was no reference to the word SharePoint anywhere. It was the source. You know, everybody goes to the source to do everything. It was the source of everything. So sometimes that's an important thing, because I mean, especially if you had a bad experience with SharePoint, sometimes you don't even want to hear that word. And I know, like, Tavis is your branding guy, right?
No, that's Ryan.
Ryan is your branding guy. I bet he gets a lot of times, please make it not look like SharePoint, because they don't want it to
remove the word SharePoint.
Yeah, just take the word SharePoint off. Or that green little bar up at the top, it still says SharePoint. Can you make it not say SharePoint? They just don't like it. So being able to rename it like this is a good thing.
Do any of you guys have y'all had experience with customers or anybody you know not wanting to call it SharePoint?
Yeah, that happens a lot when we're replacing intranets.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ryan?
they like to come up with their own names for it.
Right.
Which is kind of fun. It kind of makes it a little more personal to the company.
It does.
Well, that's where you can put it in their Office applications too, is by using that group policy. All right.
That's cool. It's a good trick.
I'll go ahead and like companies usually are going to let you mess with their group policy, right? Alrighty, back to the slides. Okay. So, that was my demo of managing promoted sites. I'll flip over to my VM and go to my SharePoint server and go to Central Admin. All right, so we're going to go to Central Admin, and we're going to go to your user profiles and properties, and that's where it's going to be. So audiences, I don't know if guys, have we talked about audiences in some other Power Hour before?
I don't know if you have.
No? Okay. We should have a whole Power Hour about audiences if we haven't. We might have already done that, though. No response. I don't know what. Oh, I should have warmed this up first, my Central Admin. Maybe I'll just warm it up and get back to it. I'll just do that. And we can do that because it doesn't matter. It's informal. It's not like we're at a conference or something. All right. Send to locations. This is so cool, and this is in Central Admin.
Yes. So creating send to locations, and you can actually create them for a lot of different things, but this allows you to make it easy for your users to be in charge of archiving, or to automatically make some archiving things happen. So if you create these send to locations, you could create a send to location that is across a different site collection. So you could actually have an archive site collection that's maybe a record center or a document center, and those can get really big. They're not limited like your other site collections are. So you could create this and send stuff to this place automatically using policies. Because you can say yes or no to allow other people to be able to submit to it manually, so they get that. It used to be in the drop down in 2010 where you hover over it and there's a little down arrow, you click on it, and then it said send to location, and it was like you could download a copy or something else was the two defaults.
Yeah.
But now you could, and even then you could manage that and create more send to locations, but it's now in the ribbon, and you have to do it from the ribbon. But you could actually say it doesn't show on the ribbon, so the user can't manually do it, but we do it by policy. So after 6 months, everything goes to our record center. And what I really like is, and that people don't really realize, is you can do the move and leave a link. So they're so used to going to this place for maybe this old data, and it still seems like it's there for them, but it's not taking up all your space. It can be somewhere else. And then the other piece is the content organizer, and I love the content organizer. I think it's a little used feature, but I think that a lot of planning goes into it. He said 88 was audience targeting.
All right.
But the content organizer, sorry, it just popped up and caught my eye. The content organizer, if you've done all the right amount of planning and you've planned out your content types, you've planned out how you're going to use SharePoint, you can actually make things, I like to call it idiot-proof.
Oh, yes.
Or user-proof.
Those poor end users.
So I worked for a very large organization. It was a government organization, and they wanted to make it basically idiot-proof. So we came in and figured out how to create all of their content types and the way they were going to manage it, all the metadata that would be needed, created hundreds of rules around it so that they could manage it, and of course set up some people and train them on how to manage things that didn't get populated. But then everybody just drops everything in one place, and SharePoint manages where it goes. It sends it to different sites or site collections or wherever it's supposed to go based on the information that's being uploaded. And then we use search to create the front end so that they didn't have to really care or know where it went. They just wanted to be able to drop stuff off, let it go where it's supposed to go, and then work with it later and make it easy for them to find it. So that was one of my favorite things to work with, was the content organizer.
Fun. So we did a whole power hour on send to locations.
Yes.
That's it's in list. Who was that found that? Andrew probably could find that too. And then we did a whole power hour on the content organizer with all demos and how to do it and where it applies and everything. So you guys
some really cool stuff there.
It's fun. Ooh, this is this is one again. I just wrote a blog post about this whole concept.
Yeah.
Single sign-on.
Single sign-on. I like quotes around that because sometimes that's the right way to call it. Sometimes it's really not. But what this actually does is allow your users to access SharePoint from their browser without having to then go ahead and type the same username and password over and over again. I get this a lot. It's one of the first things people start asking for. And you can have them fix it. You can tell them, hey, go into your internet options and either put it in local intranet or trusted sites and then go make sure that this setting is set there. But you can also do it with group policy. And we figured that part out too and how to make that work.
Yeah. So if you have people that are on Windows, you have people who are on the domain.
Yeah.
That's who that will apply to.
Right.
But yeah, whatever zone your SharePoint site is in, then you can go to custom level and do this internet setting to log in with current username and password. .domain.com.
I kind of wish that my domain joined computer would do that because I have like 10 tenants of different things. You know, of course, all of our internal stuff, most of us are on Office 365 internally. I work for Microsoft. But I also have like my own demo tenants, and we have one for our user group. There's just a whole bunch of them out there that I have logins for all of them.
Control-Shift-P.
And I have to Control-Shift-P all the time because when I click it, it wants to use my Microsoft credentials for all of my Office 365 stuff. It says, oh, it's Office 365, woohoo!
Yeah.
And then I have to go, no, go use this login or that login. So forcing it not to do the auto login is also a good thing as well.
I also listed in that blog post a lot of just gotchas and things that you don't realize that will actually work in SharePoint that didn't work before, like some of the integration stuff when you finally turn that on. Okay, app stuff. This is your stuff, Lori, the App Store.
I like the App Store. I didn't at first because, you know, I was a regular lists and libraries kind of girl, but I've embraced apps. I've understood it. But the big thing with apps is that people either get overwhelmed by too much or they scream for it and people are afraid of it as far as the admins go. The big thing is if you turn it on, you need to make sure that you can control it. And there's only one way to do that. You have to create the app catalog. If you don't create the app catalog, and you turn on the app service, people can then go and
they can get any
apps they want. They can take their credit card, and it is like the wild, wild west. And suddenly you've got apps everywhere that you didn't intend on. So you need to make sure that you turn on the app catalog. The other thing that I get is that there's too many apps. It confuses your users. So there's ways to control that, to make sure that users only see the things that they need to see. And then there's also ways to make it pre-deploy for those users so they don't even then have to think about it. So if you think about, like, if you've got project sites set up and you have an app that's specific for projects, you can go ahead and publish that out there and deploy it so that every time they go to a project site, that app is already there for them and they don't have to think about it. All right, and I think there's a demo on this, but do you want to do your demo first since it was warming up?
Oh, right, yeah.
Before you get into the demo, there's been some questions I've had from clients that maybe you can address where they have wanted to limit what out-of-the-box apps are available to site owners, not just from the App Store and such, but limit which ones show up, like document libraries and custom lists and that kind of thing.
Ooh.
Oh, that would probably require some custom work. I mean, there's some ways you can do that with turning on and off features, but if you want to limit it by specific users within sites, like if you have a site that maybe you want some users to be able to add custom lists and some users not, you're going to have to turn to something custom, maybe a third-party tool or writing something of your own. But if you just don't want like custom lists and things to show, there's some things that you can do by turning on and off featers.
So yeah, that's gonna. So yeah, those aren't really apps that you can control for that.
Yeah, the out of the box is a lot harder to control. He's talking, but I can't hear him. Or is he not talking? No, he's not talking.
Oh, there's
a delay over there.
So Adrian's got a random question. I'm just gonna go ahead and. He says, he's wondered this, why do you guys do this for free? Aren't you enabling people to not utilize your services? There are only 7 of us on my team. Like, we can't help everybody in the world, like, having them pay us for our services. So we like to let people be able to help themselves. So yeah. And we also, our motive is that, we have thousands of Rackspace customers who have SharePoint that's hosted at Rackspace. And so we like them to keep using SharePoint and to know how to use SharePoint. So this is free for, all our customers as well, and that does behoove us, right?
It behooves y'all. It behooves me because they're buying SharePoint licenses. Hey, I'm
yeah, that's true. So everybody's happy, right? Thanks, Adrian, for the question. All right, so I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen again, and hopefully my central admin is
up and running.
Yay! Okay, so I just created a shortcut to the user profile service. I'm just going to click on that. So we go to Manage Service Applications and then click the user profile service. But here we are. All right, so I created an audience called Marketing. So what I can do is go into this. I'll show you the Manage Promoted Sites first. I can go into here, and when I create a new link, I'll just go edit an existing one. You give it a URL, so this is going to be just the website to the marketing portal, the link to the marketing portal, a description, title, a description. You can give it an image URL. Make sure that this is an image that is in a location in SharePoint that everybody has access to read it, like maybe your root site collection, like site collection images, or whatever it's called, stick it in there, and then give it a target audience. And so I'll show you a couple of the other ones I have in here. I have one that's for just the home page, and it doesn't have an audience, so that means everybody can see it. And then I have one going to our community portal with no audience. So I'll go ahead and show you what it looks like as an end user. I'm going to log in as. Actually, I'm just going to go to me here and go to Sites. So this is what the end users are going to see. They're going to see all the things that either don't have an audience or are targeted to an audience that they're in. So I'm logged in as Laura Rogers. I am not in the marketing audience, so I'm not going to see marketing as a link there. And I'm also going to show you there's a little bit of a difference while I'm waiting for this. There's a little bit of a difference in Office 365. So in Office 365, you have your little Sites button, and it's got a little SharePoint icon. And so here's your sites, right? There you go. God, what is the deal today? Office 365. There we go. So there are hers. So this is what it looks like. So in Office 365, I want you guys to pay attention to this because you do have a button to click here that says Manage the Promoted Sites below. But when you do this, what do you not have?
There's no audiences.
There's no audience button here. So in Office 365, you can do audiences, but you don't do it from this screen. You have to go to the admin, the SharePoint admin section in Office 365 admin, and go to the user profiles and properties and go to that exact same screen here to be able to do the same thing with the promoted sites and to be able to add an audience to it. So like, oh, here we go. So I don't see the marketing one. Right. And again, these are all the sites I'm following, which is just all the ones that I've clicked the little follow button next to. So yeah, so that's where that is. And then the manage promoted links to Office, publish links to Office client applications is here. So this is one where I created a document library and called it templates and created all the files in there, put them in as content types, called it templates, called it company templates, and then gave it an image URL and made it a document library with template synchronization. And that is the one that's going to show up in your client applications as when they're creating a new file as somewhere they can go to pick from.
Yep. And the cool thing about that is you can even audience target it too. So if you have like finance has some very specific templates that they use, or marketing, or whoever, then you can do that. But then you also have the ability to do like the global one that everybody just gets the basic. Maybe it's just got your logo on it in a specific place and set up the way you want it, or headers or whatever. And that works for Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So you can even create your own like branded slides that you want to use. Marketing can go ahead, or communications can go ahead and say, this is everybody, if you have a presentation, this is what you're going to use, and publish it out there so that when they go into PowerPoint, they can just start it and have already all that stuff in there.
Some of these, this has been around since SharePoint 2007, by the way. And so, like Slide Library, that doesn't even exist anymore in 2013. It's just kind of still in here. Some of these other ones, I'm not even sure. I haven't tested every single one of those. But I'd be interested to see kind of what different functionality they give besides just making it, it's just being a link, you know?
We're using 2013 Anne for this, and also some of it will show in Office 365. I think this is all the same for 2016. I can't verify yet. I haven't double-checked all that, but I would think it would be.
Okay, now we've got your Manage the App Store demo.
Okay, so apps. Let me come over here. I'm going to have to go find my admin stuff. Come down to my SharePoint. And I'm doing this and demo on Office 365 just so that we didn't have to have like
I don't have the App Store
multiple VMs and all of that and stuff set up. But it's very similar. You would go into the apps setting in Central Admin. There will be a setting in Central Admin down here that says apps, and you would have some of the same exact links. But the first thing you have to do is you have to create this app catalog. You get one per web app. So if you're on Office 365, you get one per tenant. But if you're on-prem, you have to create an app catalog for each web app because it's associated to that specific web app. And that is how you would be able to control things. Sorry. That's okay. There you go. Are we still screen sharing?
Yeah, I made it bigger.
Oh, okay, thanks. So once you do this, you can come in here and you can distribute your apps for Office, and manage your app requests. This is the important piece when you come in that you need to turn on, is managing your app requests, and you can turn on and off that ability. Let me come right back here. I'm going to come back to apps here, and you can purchase apps, you can manage licenses, but here's where you configure your store settings. If you have not created the app catalog, and you come in here to click Configure Store Settings, I clicked that, didn't I? Okay, yeah. It's still spinning.
It'll tell you have to create.
There we go. It's going to have a big thing. It's you have to create the app catalog first. It'll give you a nice, easy link. Click Create the App Catalog. and just go for it from there. And that's even on-prem as well. It's going to prompt you to create that app catalog right there. You don't have to go to a specific place to do it. You can do it all from that one place. But should end users be able to get apps from the marketplace? If you turn this off, then when they go to the marketplace, the only option they get is to click request.
Oh,
and they
okay.
can request
so you do want to put that on no if you want to control it.
Yes, if you want to control
no
it.
doesn't turn off the whole thing.
No doesn't turn off the whole thing. It just it allows you to have control.
Oh,
so my customer that wanted me to break it wanted it to go. There's a way that you can go and browse the store, and they wanted this yellow bar at the top that says, apps have not been turned on, contact your administrator, which means that you haven't turned on the app service at all for that web app. And so they were like, no, we want it to appear broken. We want this. Even though they wanted to turn on apps because they wanted to be able to create and publish apps, but then they wanted that broken. And I was like, this is impossible. Why do you want me to break SharePoint? It's not supposed to work this way. I was like, just create.
This isn't worded very well.
Yeah. And so I told them, I said, just create the app catalog and turn it to no. And then they were like, well, then people can request it, and we don't want to manage requests. I was like, well, you don't have to manage the requests. You can just say, oh, yeah, ignore those, right? But that's what they wanted. They wanted the big yellow bar at the top. So setting that to no is how you turn off the ability to purchase the apps. Managing apps for Office, you can turn that on and off here as well, which is different from apps for SharePoint. That's like the things that go into your Outlook or whatever. Like there's a Bing app for Outlook. There's a Boomerang is a new one. You can go get Boomerang and attach it to Outlook, which is really cool. It's like sends you reminders that somebody hasn't followed up on an email you wanted them to follow up on, and all this kind of cool stuff. But you have to turn those things on after you do the app catalog. So the app catalog is important there. So let me go back to my app catalog here. I see that 4 minutes. I'm like,
so folder thing is important.
From the app catalog, when you come into your app catalog, one thing that's important, if you want people to not be able to see things, you can create folders in your app catalog, and that is where you can then come in here and set permissions on these specific folders so that people can only see the things that apply for them. For this one, I've got finance. I would put finance people to be able to share it with. Then when they go to click add an app, only if they're in the permissions to see this in the app catalog would they be able to see those apps.
What about the people using the apps?
The people using the apps, it doesn't matter because it's just when you add. Yeah. If you're just an end user, you're not going to have permission to go to that store and add anything anyway. So that's an important thing. The other thing is being able to deploy apps. So you have to deploy. If you go get an app from the catalog, you have to deploy it to your app catalog as if you have added an app. So let me come in here to site contents and apps here. You can click this. Oh, no, not that one. Where is it? Let me do this one.
Of course, Power BI is giving you trouble.
Of course, it's going to give me a hard time. Okay.
Is the hammer still in there?
Oh, there it is. There's this deployment button. So in the app catalog, you have a deployment button. And if you've deployed a custom app that you've purchased from the store, you deploy it, you add the app to the actual site. So like you go in, click add an app, go to your custom app. This one was Yammer or whatever. And then it shows up in here. Then you can click deployment, and you can deploy it by a couple of different ways. And when you deploy it, you can deploy it to a specific URL, so you can deploy it to just specific sites. You can deploy it by managed path. Now in Office 365, you get one managed path that site, so it doesn't really give you a whole lot of benefit there. But if you're on-prem and maybe you've got a managed path of projects and you want all of them, you can just say, hey, everything that's in this managed path gets this app by default, and if they create a new one, it's there. It's just turned on for them. Or you can deploy it by site template. So if there's a specific app that you want on every template that's created that specific way, you can do that as well. So then they don't have to think about, do I need this, do I want this? It's just there for them.
Nice. All right.
Now we can go back to the slides because we got a couple more.
Oops. Clicked on the wrong thing. Okay, App Store, and we got like a couple more slides. Search. we'll just have one of my guys do a whole power hour on
search.
Query rules.
Yeah.
Who wants to do peer query rules? My favorite two search reports are abandoned queries and no results queries. So you can find out what people are looking for in SharePoint and not finding maybe, and then make SharePoint so that they can find it. Like put the stuff in there because everybody's going to SharePoint looking for it. You might as well let them find it. Mm-hmm. And then just extra things that have to be installed on the server. Office Web Apps is a separate installation.
Yeah.
On a separate server that the admin has to do. Workflow Manager is a separate installation. Incoming email has to be configured with all exchange information and everything to be able to have email that arrives in your lists and libraries on premises, not in the cloud.
Yeah.
And then OneDrive settings.
Yeah. Keeping up with those OneDrive settings, letting people use the cloud if they're needed.
If you have a hybrid
and then
thing
also
going.
keeping up to date on your service packs because new stuff is being released all the time. So you may go somewhere, see this cool new feature, and you're going, well, why didn't we have that? Maybe it's in a service pack or something. So your admins need to make sure they keep up to date on that. With testing, the caveat is they have to test it, and use caution there. I'd be more likely to do it's everybody's birthday.
I know, all of a sudden it's their birthdays.
So make sure that they're testing and they're doing that appropriately, but it is important to make sure that if there's new features coming out that you go get those.
Awesome. Okay, next week, Kevin, you're doing something, right? Workflow stuff?
Yes, I'm going to be doing a power hour on how to create groups and set permissions via workflow.
Awesome. All right, we actually have a plan for next week, which is rare. So thanks, Lori, for coming over, and that was a fun power. Thanks everybody for the interactive questions, and we will be back next week. I'll be out of town. I'll actually be at the Rackspace headquarters. So, all right, we'll see everybody next time. Bye.